This episode of the PC Perspective Podcast is brought to you by Casper, a sleep brand that continues to revolutionize its line of products to create an exceptionally comfortable sleep experience one night at a time. Get $100 off select mattresses by visiting casper.com/PCPer100 and using promo code PCPer100 at checkout. Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 490, being recorded on March 8th, 7th, 2018.
Try,
yeah, that's close. Whatever, it's 2018 as well. I'm Ryan Schraub.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Allyn.
I'm Sebastian P. Shut up, Allyn.
There's a surprise Sebastian.
All right. This is my voice.
Why do I have Sebastian only in my left ear, but the other people in all of my ears?
I don't know. Sebastian's special.
His voice
by my
is just
left
too
mic,
good.
I'm too far away from the right channel for you to hear it.
No, it was a board issue. We got it fixed.
I'm Allyn. Hi.
So welcome to the show, everybody. We are only 10 episodes away from the big 500 mark.
500.
We're going to plan a big, just like we have done in all the milestone episodes. We're going to plan
like
a
420.
like especially 420. We're going to plan a really huge blowout party.
Sure.
For 500. Oh, it's going to be great. What was the date you came up with again, Ken? If we don't skip one, May 16th.
I think so.
May 16th.
So the snow will melt here.
No, it won't.
I mean, probably not. I spent the last 2 days and last day and a half last one day, I'll say, in Minnesota. And they had some snow. They had quite a bit of snow, actually. Stayed across the street from the Mall of America.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Remember when that was a big deal? Had a roller coaster inside.
Doesn't still?
It does. Has a log flume. Has a.
Wasn't it the site of the old baseball stadium?
Yes.
And they've got a row of seats like on some strange wall.
Oh, really? I haven't seen that. It also has an Orange Julius.
Inside the Wetzel's Pretzels.
Hey, we've got an Orange Julius.
I didn't walk around that much of it because I didn't like it'd be like walking around a theme park essentially. Like it's an enormous thing, and also whatever. So welcome to the show, everybody. We recorded on Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific at PCPer.com/live. You can come join us, hang out, watch us record, pre-show, post-show. We have a chat room for you to interact with us. We monitor that moderately, some more than others. See what kind of interesting input you might have during our topics. If you need a little reminder about that, location and time, you can go to PCPer.com/subscribe. You get this page here, which asks for your name, your email address, and then we send you a notification, an email, if you will, before the show begins. Sometimes 30 minutes, sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes an hour and 30 minutes. It really just depends on what I'm doing in the run-up to the show actually being finished. So that's that. We also have our Patreon campaign running. That is at patreon.com/PCPer. This is your opportunity, I would say. This is us asking you to support us financially, directly, recurring, monthly, all those adjectives work. If you believe that the content we create is interesting or funny or takes you out of whatever hellhole you're in for an hour and a half each day. I don't know. That's what I use podcasts for myself, so I get it. I just don't listen to this one again during the week. Seems a little, overkilling it. I do download it, though, so our podcast numbers are inflated by at least one. Right. Because I download it every week.
If you listen to this podcast, there'd probably have to be some major changes.
It's true. So anyway, and if you become a new patron, you increase your patronage during the show, I will give you a shout out. We have one already who has edited their pledge from $33 to $40 a month. Sir Bogative. His icon is that a cat or a dog?
Looks like both.
It's a mug.
It's
half man, half dog. He's his own best friend.
He's his own.
Come on, you guys,
Spaceballs.
Spaceballs, right?
Come on.
I got you. I get
Who
it.
are you? Barf. Not here, mister. This is a Mercedes. Anyway, thank you to everybody who is supporting us on Patreon. And
I need to watch that movie. Thanks.
You've never seen it?
I've seen it.
Oh, okay.
It's just been a really long time.
We have our mailbags. Our mailbags are what allows us, or Patreon is what allows us to do the mailbags. We got these out of order.
I don't.
Oh, no.
I think
No idea how that happened.
Yeah, well, it happens. So we did a mailbag, PCPer mailbag number 33. I think, Josh, are you going to record the mailbag this week?
Maybe.
So I think I solicited some questions for you, Josh, on Monday.
Are they special questions?
Somebody asked about hamburgers, so they're right up your alley.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it'll be good for that. So if you want to see a member of the staff answer reader submitted questions for about 20 minutes or so, Josh maybe 45 minutes. You can do that on our YouTube channel or on PCPer.com. We'll sit there as well. So and then we're going back to forwards. We have our merch store. This is our second week for that. This is at bit.ly/PCPerMerch. bit.ly/PCPerMerch takes you to this, where you can buy such classic gear as the Death Wish Raid t-shirt, the classic PCPer logo on your chest t-shirt, the logo mug. Can I zoom out?
Hey, you know what the best thing about
hot dog down a hallway t-shirt?
Do you know what the best thing about all this is?
I don't, but you're going to tell me.
There's something to wear every day of the week.
You're going to wear the mug?
If you go naked on Monday.
Saturday and Sunday.
You're going to wear the mug one day?
You know what?
I see.
If the Chili Peppers could do it with socks, you can do it with a mug.
I actually...
Although we're going to need a sweet lemonade mug if you're going to do that.
That's talent, actually. All right. Yes, so get your sweet lemonade t-shirts, get your super pipe t-shirts, get your hot dog down a hallway t-shirts.
I'm happy to report that we've sold at least one of every design, so there are some depraved people out there.
So there is
apparently.
at least somebody who will be soon walking around in a hot dog down a hallway t-shirt. Again, that URL.
It's that guy. It's that guy from QuakeCon. He's preparing for the next QuakeCon. Remember that one QuakeCon where...
The hot dog suit?
No. Ryan's like, we're
Oh,
looking for
great.
people to give away stuff to, and just out of nowhere, Ryan, like, off the top of his head's like, someone who has every PCPer shirt from every QuakeCon, and I'm like, there's no way this is going to happen. Sure enough, in the back of the thing.
Apparently, thought I was more creative than I was and setting the challenge.
He was
but
wearing all of them.
Yeah, I don't even...
He had, like...
That's good thinking on the part to, like, get free swag, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
You could
what
win
if I
the
could have
most
asked for any
t-shirt
one
contest
shirt?
and...
So again,
I hope he won a t-shirt.
What did he get?
I'm sure we just gave him a t-shirt.
Yeah, I'm sure we just gave him a shirt. Yeah, probably.
But that's all. Again, URL bit.ly/PCPerMerch, all lowercase. So we'll get you some of that. All right, let's jump into the stuff. Razer Blade Stealth review. This is the first time we've looked at a Razer notebook. Ken did this review. What the hell did you think?
Well, it's not for gaming.
Yes.
Which is an important distinction to make when you say Razer laptop, because
everything
you
else,
start to think gaming
you do
laptop,
think that.
right?
Yeah, I agree.
But they started the Razer Blade Stealth in 2016, I think, and this was sort of one of the first laptops with Thunderbolt 3, and it's where they launched the Razer Core, which is their external GPU box.
Right.
So it was the beginning of the actual delivery of the promise of external GPUs working on Windows, and that works now. You can buy docks from other people. They launched the Razer Core V2 a little late last year, I think, alongside this laptop. But beyond that, it's a really thin and light and well-built 8th gen Ultrabook. So we're talking true quad-core processor, hyper-threaded.
8550U, 16 gigs of RAM, 256 to 1 terabyte SSD. So they don't. What I do like is they don't offer cut-down versions of this. Well, if you're looking for a value prop on this, you're not going to find it because they don't have an 8 gig model. They don't have a 128 gig SSD model.
Yeah, they still technically sell them with the 7th generation processor. If you want a cheaper option, they have the dual core parts, but they still start at 16 gigs of RAM and 256 storage.
Right.
So it's very well equipped. Like you said, you can't buy one of these with 4 gigs of RAM and 120 gig SSD, kind of lowering the starts at price with a junk configuration that no one should buy because you can't upgrade the RAM on these things.
Fair. So what about like anything stand out, like design, screen, anything like that?
I was really impressed by the screen. It's an IGZO panel. It's a QHD Plus 3200 by 1800 IGZO panel, which you don't see a lot of IGZO panels, or at least people calling them out. And I thought it had really good blacks, and the colors were quite vibrant. I know Allyn took a look at it for a moment when I opened up the laptop. I was like, oh, that's a good looking display, and I showed it to Allyn.
Yeah.
And he uses an OLED laptop, which obviously isn't going to be as good as that, but I think
It's
it was
close.
Yeah, it was.
It just doesn't get as bright. Is really the only.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still a 100% sRGB, so it's not going up into the P3 color space like we've seen some of the XPS machines do in recent past. So it's still kind of base color gamut, which I mean is absolutely fine on Windows these days.
Yeah.
It doesn't really have Windows doesn't have great support for different color profiles yet. They're still kind of working through that. But I think it was a beautiful screen.
I think I like the rest of the design as well. It's very evocative of MacBook.
Listen, it looks like a MacBook Pro.
Okay, it's not evocative of it. It looks like MacBook. Yeah. Down to the trackpad look and all that type of stuff.
Yeah,
the keyboard kind of
trackpad.
layout. But what you had some issues with the keyboard and the trackpad in particular, right?
They didn't feel great to me personally. The keyboard didn't have a whole lot of travel. They bottom out very quickly, so I just couldn't necessarily get used to typing on it.
The new MacBooks have that as well, right? Like really low key travel.
The new MacBooks have more travel than this.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually I'm one of the few people who like the new keyboard on the MacBook Pros. The 12-inch MacBook is garbage with the even less key travel, but I like the new MacBook Pros. I got used to it when I had mine. This is one of the worst chiclet keyboards I've used in several years. And it's not like they didn't have, in theory, the space for key travel, because this isn't the thinnest notebook we've seen. Mm-hmm. It's like half an inch thick, I think. So it seems like they had the ability to, and Razer makes good keyboards, and I know at one point they were doing really low profile mechanical switches for some like external laptop keyboards, like I think like an iPad keyboard. We're not seeing any of that here. One thing I was really impressed with on the keyboard is the backlight. It's one of the best backlight implementations I've seen, which makes sense coming from Razer, right? Mm-hmm. They're really into keyboards and RGB. Interestingly enough, we had the gunmetal gray option, which only has a white backlight. If you get the black chassis option, it has full Razer Chroma RGB backlighting. I have no idea why they made that decision. They're the same price.
Yeah, that's weird.
It's a weird oddity.
Yeah.
Personally, I think the white backlight's fine. I don't really need RGB backlighting on my laptop. But the backlight was very well isolated. It didn't have any bleed through in other keys, which the laptop I'm currently using for a review has a major problem with that, and we'll probably talk about that next week. It's just a mess, but I was very impressed with the sort of backlight implementation.
Yep. Trackpad seemed a little bit too easy to press.
The trackpad was better than the keyboard. I still don't think it had enough travel in it, essentially. I had a lot of accidental actuations. Palm rejection was really good, actually. It was better than most of the PC laptops I use, and I'm pretty particular on that. It kind of felt like the new MacBooks that have the electromechanical click pad instead of the physical one on the lightest setting.
Yeah.
Whereas when I had my MacBook, I'd always crank that up to the most firm.
Right.
It's just a little lighter. I don't think the trackpad is a deal breaker. I think that's something you could get used to pretty easily.
Okay.
But
connectivity-wise, we had one Type-C, two Type-A's, a full-size HDMI, and a headphone jack. So no SD cards.
yeah, a little bare for
Yeah, it looks like there's more space
laptop
here
like
for
this.
stuff.
Yeah. You
Maybe.
could easily imagine a full-size SD card slot there, which I'd love to see.
Yeah.
I'd like to see another Thunderbolt 3 or USB-C type. USB Type-C port with power delivery on the other side with the full-size HDMI port. Mm-hmm. That way you can charge it from either side. It's kind of what I love about the promise of USB-C charging is the ability to sort of plug it into whatever side you want, depending on how your desk is set up. You don't get that here, which is a bit of a bummer.
What about performance then? So we measured performance. We've looked at quite a few machines now with the Core i7-8550U in it.
As it turns out, yeah.
Pretty similar to other designs, I guess.
It stayed within the ballpark of the other 8th gen laptops and even the R5 2500U and the HP Envy X360 that we took a look at a couple weeks ago. However, it seemed to be towards the bottom of the pack for most of these tests when compared to the 8th gen laptops. And we think that's due to sort of a thermal trade-off, because at 100% load, the fans on this laptop are really quiet.
Yeah.
It never really gets jet engine loud like a lot of laptops. So it kind of seems like they're trading off thermal performance and versus noise. But, I mean, it's within 10 to 15% of the other laptops. So I actually think I prefer not having a jet engine when the processor is fully being used.
You do a lot of the laptop testing at the desk next to mine.
Yeah.
And
of course.
I will say for this one, I was shocked when I saw that it was running through an H.264 loop or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I did not hear it.
Yeah.
Whereas, a new
usually
XPS 13
tell
or
when a
whatever, I
laptop
can
is
tell.
done.
Yeah. Even the ones that I think are still really good designs and good implementations, when you suddenly start doing, video transcoding for 40 minutes, they start to cook a little. So interesting there. Anything on the storage performance looked kind of ho-hum, peaked at 2 gigs, 2.1 by 1.5 gigs per second on that, using a Samsung PM961, which is essentially the OEM version of the 960 Evo.
Yeah, it seemed like that performance might be a little tuned down too to prevent some thermal throttling, but it's still better than the vast majority of SSDs we see in notebooks.
Battery life hits 6 hours, which is lower than like the HP Spectre X360, which is a bigger machine, right?
Yeah.
That's a 15-inch machine, so it's going to have a bigger battery. But better than the Ryzen Mobile, as well as the last year, or not, I guess it's last year's, the previous gen XPS 13 with the 8250U in it, right? So that's
the Inspiron, not the XPS.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's the
Inspiron 13
that we took a look at a
got
couple weeks ago. It actually does have a relatively large battery at 53.6 watt hours.
Yeah.
So I'm not entirely sure where it's coming from.
Yeah, because you point out that the ZenBook 3 has a smaller battery.
Yeah.
But is able to get,
And I even think like IGZO panels are supposed to be less on power draw, if I remember correctly, than LCDs. I think that's a thing. Someone will probably have to correct me on that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not the best. 6 hours. You can get through most of your day if you're not using it. Like we do web browsing at a very high backlight.
Yeah, we're pretty
test,
strenuous on these machines in our battery test for sure. If we look at pricing, so what does this start at?
$15.99, I believe.
$13.99?
Yeah, $13.99.
$13.99, which is less than I thought. Again, with 256 gigs of storage, 16 gigs of memory, and the quad-core 8550U processor. What are the upcharges? Is it just higher storage? It's only options? Yeah.
And I mean, storage is removable, so like...
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's user replaceable.
Yeah, there's an M.2
okay,
slot in there. There's nothing... There'd be nothing wrong with going with the base configuration of this laptop because the one thing that you can change by configuring it higher is user upgradable, which is super nice to see. Like having that 16 gigs of RAM in there by default really opens things up.
So it's an interesting, good, fairly good product for our first look at a Razer device. Not perfect. Keyboard, touchpad needed some work.
Yeah. I'd just like to see that keyboard improved. I mean, Razer of all companies, I would think would be able to get their act together.
Check out the review. It's on PCPer.com, obviously. And we're gonna quickly run through. Lee posted a review of the Seasonic Prime 600 watt. I believe this might be our third Seasonic Prime power supply review. Prime being the Seasonic full migration from analog to digital PWM on all this. Anything stand out as you were looking through this review?
There's no fan.
There's no fan.
600 watt power supply with no fan.
And it maintains titanium.
There's no fan. Like, that's kind of significant.
Wait, what's the fan like?
Wait, what? How fast does the fan spin?
Yeah, no, 0.
I was looking at this, and I was looking at this picture. I didn't even notice that there was no fan there.
And not only that, but if you take the bottom part out, you can use it as a colander.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you could rinse your pasta off in this. Yeah,
and I do.
Helps it run cooler, Yeah,
that's pretty impressive.
it is. It's really impressive.
Yeah. No, and it stays well above 90% efficiency the whole time he tested it.
Multi GPU support.
Yeah.
Fanless operation, 0 dBA.
At 300 watts, it's 94%
Is that its peak?
efficiency. Yeah, that's its peak.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. Fully
That's up
modular
there.
still. This is probably the highest wattage unit that exists that is fanless.
I think so.
I've not seen a higher wattage one.
Yeah.
It does look funny now that I'm looking at these pictures of the mesh and realizing that there's no fan in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can almost see the nipples.
Fishnet power supply.
So if you do, he's turning red. Beat red.
Lord.
So I would recommend having this in a portion of your case that's open elsewhere and not like sort of boxed
Well,
in.
yeah,
like,
sure.
You might not be water cooling your PC if you want to use this.
One of the guys in the
You're
comments.
going to want some airflow.
One of the guys in the comments has used different fanless Seasonic in a water cooled system
Oh.
with a 1080 Ti.
I mean, even
it
in
was
most
fine.
modern cases, the power supply, and Sebastian can correct me on this if I'm wrong, the power supply is kind of segmented off by its own anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
You just
So
wanna
like
be
you don't get a
careful.
lot of airflow there by default.
Right.
Because they have been, thinking that the fan on the power supply would do that, and it kind of draws off from the bottom, exhausts out the back. So I'm not sure what would be the optimal configuration here. If the open area where the fan would be should still face down or up, I would assume up in this case.
I would hope up.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the
when
cases
it's-
I've looked at in the last
when it's
couple of years,
running-
the mid towers, they put the power supply in its own compartment on the bottom or the top.
Yeah.
So unless you've got triple fans on the front intake, there's nothing going over the PSU. You'd have to use a case that had a fan low enough, if it's bottom mounted, to have some airflow across this PSU, which is not every mid tower will go all the way down to the floor with airflow.
Well, the thing to realize is, as efficient as this is, I mean, if you're running it like in a normal configuration, not like SLI config or just going crazy with it. So if you're only drawing around 300 watts, 400 watts, it's probably only dissipating 20 watts.
Yeah.
Like that's
Because of the efficiency.
yeah. So even if there's zero airflow across it, I mean, it can radiate more than 20 watts worth just away with no air moving over it.
The primary downside here is its cost. It is a 600 watt power supply that will cost you
Well, it's
$199.
$190.
$190 for 600 watts is definitely on the high end, if not, probably the most expensive 600 watt power supply that exists.
Yeah.
But you're paying for that titanium certification, the ability for it to run at that efficiency.
And it has
And
a
I'm fairly sure I've seen like 450 watt fanless over $200.
Really.
You just say 12-year warranty, Alex?
12-year warranty.
12 winner.
10 is not enough these days.
No.
For that kind of price, if it's going to be good for 12 years,
Yeah.
that's not bad.
Yeah. Even if you don't have an incessant need for a silent power supply, right? But 600 watts, I think, is in the area where, for the vast majority of builders, that's plenty. Right? You've got a 8700K or a Ryzen 7 and a 1 GPU.
You know what the best part about that entire picture was, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but could you go back to there?
With this one?
Yeah, if you've got an S&M dungeon, this would be awesome.
Okay, well, I didn't know when we were bringing Sebastian on, we were going to have to cut somebody from the show early. So it's good to know that we have the fill-in so we can still maintain four people. So that's a plus. So check out that review on PCPer.com, the Seasonic Prime 600 watt titanium fanless power supply. Now, Sebastian, we brought you on to talk through, in a relatively brief manner, I guess, these two reviews. The HyperX wireless headset, the Cloud Flight wireless.
You don't want to go into excruciating detail and talk at length about both of these reviews? Come on.
Sure, I'll cut you off when we're done.
No, we don't have to spend a lot of time on these. Pretty simple, straightforward. The interesting thing about the Cloud Flight from HyperX is that they hadn't had a wireless headset before. I didn't realize this.
Yeah.
All their stuff was wired. This is their first effort. It's 2.4 gigahertz. Comes with the USB dongle. It's not using Bluetooth or anything, and it can still be used with a wire. It comes with a 3.5 millimeter analog cable. And interestingly, they have two different specifications for the frequency response of these headphones, whether you're doing wired or wireless, which is pretty transparent of them because the onboard amplifier isn't quite as good as what you can do externally. So if you're using these wireless, you're limited to 16-bit audio, and it defaults to 1644. It's like CD quality audio. It'll do 48 kilohertz, so like DVD and like multimedia audio, but you're not doing like high res with this, and which you could do with the analog connection.
Got it.
The important thing to me is it's basically got three things going for it. It's very comfortable, lightweight, very good padding, kind of a medium clamping force. Like I don't know how to quantify like my head size. I guess it's like medium size, but like on my head, they're just tight enough that they don't move at all. and they don't feel tight.
Yeah.
So there's no fatigue after wearing these for 6 hours.
Right.
And the other thing is the battery life. If you're using them wireless, you turn off the lighting. There isn't a lot of lighting. It's just the HyperX logo on each ear cup. But with that disabled, they quote up to 30 hours. I didn't do any kind of controlled testing for battery life. Over the course of a couple of days, I never had to charge them. I still haven't charged them. But with the lights on, they're like 15 hours. With the lights off, they're up to 30.
Interesting.
50% volume.
Here's a question for you. If the batteries are dead and you connect them through analog, do they still work?
I think the analog just bypasses
do.
everything on those.
But that's not always the case. My Bose headphones did not do that, and it annoyed the heck out of me.
It's
Because you bought Bose headphones.
Oh my God.
Because it was the sound isolating like circuitry, everything has to go through on the Bose.
Well,
right?
it could not.
Yeah, there are plenty
could
of noise
function as
canceling headphones that
headphones.
do allow you to pass through.
Yeah.
Right. But then
I have
it
not
wouldn't
intentionally killed the battery and tested that, Ryan. I'll have to get back with you on that.
And it wouldn't also do the sound
Sure,
isolation.
but they would work as
Yeah, but they would just
headphones.
work instead of being useless pieces of plastic in my bag with the batteries.
My
dead.
Sony noise canceling headphones do that.
They just work without the noise canceling when the battery's dead. Okay, something to look
Speaking
at.
of Sony, these are very Sony-like, Ken. Like not only the look, but the way they sound. They have what I would describe as like the Sony over-ear headphone sound, like just a very slightly recessed mid-range. You're getting a little bit more bass response, but they still sound very clear. Very, very close to what I would consider audiophile headphones. They sound...
How much are they? $159 on Amazon.
Yeah, 59.
Yeah.
How's the mic?
I would say it's a little above average. It's not the best mic I've tested so far was on the Logitech. I can't remember the model now. The ones that I had that were red. They had like the fabric finish.
Oh yeah,
533
that had a ridiculously
maybe.
good microphone on those.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But this mic just kind of average.
Yeah.
A little above average.
Good for gaming, not for podcasting type of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like TeamSpeak and Discord, like certified audio. Very clear, but very mid-rangey audio.
Now these list PS4, PC, PS4, PS4 Pro. I guess that's because they're connecting through Bluetooth to the PlayStation.
No, if it can do wire, I didn't even try it with my PS4. I should have. If it's doing PS4, it's with the USB dongle. It doesn't have Bluetooth. Otherwise, you're just connecting to the controller with the 3.5 millimeter.
Right, because my assumption would be that you could do that with the Xbox as well, if that's all it was.
Yeah, I don't know why it said PS4 only, because it can connect to any console that accepts analog audio.
So how would these compare to like the Logi 603s or their wireless versions? Because Logitech really came out and said, hey, we've got these about as neutral as possible. We've got these special cones in there.
I would say,
how would you compare them?
The sound signatures of the Logitech with the Pro G drivers compared to these, there's a little bit of an audible difference between a 40 and a 50 millimeter driver, depending on the ear cup and the implementation and all that. But these are 50 millimeter drivers. They are capable of sounding a little bit bigger. Like they do have slightly more prominent bass, and
they probably don't trail off at the bass nearly as much just because of physics.
Yeah, like the Pro G drivers have pretty big magnets, and they have a lot of bass for 40 millimeter drivers. And they are definitely more neutral. I would say they have more mid-range than these do. So they sound pretty flat. These don't sound flat. They sound a little bit more bass heavy. Not extreme, but just slightly. A little bit more like of a Beats sound than like a Grado sound, which is like a really mid-range heavy headphone sound.
So how about soundstage wise?
Good. They definitely don't sound narrow. The widest headphones I've ever heard are from Audio-Technica. The ADH700X headphones that I have sound really, really wide. And these are a little bit below that, but they're like on par with Grado. Like the wiring in these headphones is obviously good because they've maintained good stereo separation.
Got it.
That's good because I thought that, in my testing in the past, that the Grado headphones like these have a pretty wide soundstage. I mean, if you close your eyes and they have good source material, you can really easily identify where stuff's coming from. And
That's really coming from
it's
channel
not narrow.
separation.
And so
Like,
that's impressive that something 100.
The amplifiers and the speakers, the headphones, everything that stages the best is just more isolation between left and right channel. So that the wiring in these is good. Trying to think of the headphone that it reminds me of, but I cannot think of the name of it right now. But not a gaming headphone. They're in a little bit different league than most gaming headphones I've heard as far as just overall clarity and sound quality. So very impressive.
I'm kind of shocked that a HyperX branded thing does this well.
When it's connected wired. Wireless, it's good, but it's not as wide, it's not as detailed, but you're limited by the onboard DAC and amp and 16-bit audio.
Well, HyperX Cloudflight wireless review on the site, and we're also now going to move into the Corsair Carbide 275R. This is a brand new case from Corsair, just launched this week. Tempered glass, mid-tower case, shiny pictures.
But do the fans go all the way to the ground?
They can, because there's a cutout. This one only includes one intake fan, but there's a cutout on the floor of this case, which isn't really a floor. It's like a shroud over the PSU. So this is yet another one of those cases where if you had a fanless PSU, it's not getting any air unless you specifically put a fan down there.
Right.
But this is, if you've seen some of Corsair's compact mid-tower designs lately, it still holds an ATX motherboard, but it's kind of tight. And they're not very tall. They're not very deep. They're kind of like a square when viewed from the side. And they managed to have great component clearance because they're just wide enough to hold like the tallest cooler I have. Like CPU cooler clearance is up to 170 millimeters in this, so like a 165 millimeter coolers fit just fine. You've got room for 3 fans up front, and it comes with one. It comes with one on the back as well, so you get some decent airflow through this thing out of the box. But you're dealing with kind of that modern classic case setup that a lot of these have. Bottom mounted PSU,
right?
7 expansion slots, 120 millimeter rear exhaust, and then 2 or 3 up front, and then another 2 or 3 up top. But when you get this compact, you don't have a lot of space up top. So
scroll up.
Go ahead.
That rear IO, is that like a additional dual slot right there?
Yeah, there's a couple of cases that have been like this lately where they're cut for a vertical GPU installation, but they don't come with the stuff to do it. So if you get a separate riser for your GPU, you can install it vertically up front or any other card.
And suffocated against tempered glass.
Yeah,
a little.
So yeah, maybe not a GPU then.
How is that side panel
GPU?
Sebastian, how is that side panel attached? Is that just 4 screws or does it slide off?
No.
It's not just 4 screws, it's 4 bolts and they're hex bolts.
Oh.
This is kind of a
on
big
the next
negative.
page, I show you the little Allyn key it comes with.
Can you over tighten those and crack the crack out of it?
Yep.
Probably.
Really? You should try it.
I wouldn't. I'm just saying.
I mean, they might. Well, no, I don't know if they bought them before the.
I was gonna say, do they bought them before that? Do they have rubber grommets on them at all or anything to prevent that?
That one.
Yeah, what are you talking about? Like on the glass?
Yeah, the screws.
Yeah, on the screws or the glass.
Yeah, the screws don't actually touch the glass at all on this one. There's a rubber grommet or washer that goes through and kind of sticks out both sides of the glass. So when you tighten down the bolts, they're only sort of squishing against the rubber. They're not actually touching the glass.
Well, that's good for vibration and like it shouldn't rattle around at all. Just a pain in the butt to get the side off if you need to get in there for something.
So
yeah, that was my only real complaint with it. There's 2 things about this case that I wasn't wild about and everything else I liked. The front intake is pretty slim.
Yeah.
It's just a slim space in between the front panel and the frame. Yeah. You get enough airflow. This wasn't the worst airflow case I've tested at all, but it's near the bottom of the current crop of cases that I've tested.
Got it.
It ended up like second overall in temperatures, but like second from the bottom. But otherwise, it was about average for noise. It's not like I had to weigh everything against the price. Like this is a case that is a $69 case with the acrylic side, which is actually a full side. It's not just a windowed metal panel.
Right.
And it's $79 for the tempered glass side version.
Okay.
Not an expensive case at all. Like
No.
the previous kind of sweet spot for these cases was the NZXT S340 at, I believe it launched at $69.99. That's just with a acrylic window, wasn't tempered glass. They came out with a tempered glass version later that was a slightly higher price point, but to come out with a case at that same 69 and then offer it with glass for $10 more competes very favorably against the S340.
Yeah, it doesn't look bad in these noise tests, right? It's lower than the N1 301, lower than the Silverstone, but slightly above the Corsair's 460X, or in line with the Fractal Design R6. So
yeah, their own Crystal 460X case, which basically this has kind of the same footprint as that case, is louder, but it's more wide open all the way around. It has bigger gaps between the tempered glass panels and the body. So this one's a little bit tighter, but that also helps reduce noise. So it's a trade-off. Like any silent or more silent case is generally going to have higher temps, but not always.
Right.
So overall, I thought it was solid, and it looks nice. I mean, it's got like the kind of feet on it that look like they go to like a AV system, I've seen turntables with feet like this. And it's got I got the white one in for review. So that's personal preference. This is also in black. It's a nice matte black.
Cool. All right. Check it out. That's on the website. Before we move on to our ad break, we do have a new patron, $5 pledge from Christopher Happy. Also has the same dog, cat looking icon. That must be the default icon. Oh, well. Thank you very much, Christopher. We greatly appreciate it. Let's take a quick second here. Thank today's podcast sponsor. This episode of the PC Perspective Podcast is brought to you by Casper. It says it over on the thing over there. It says Casper. Casper is a sleep brand that continues to revolutionize its line of products to create an exceptionally comfortable sleep experience one night at a time. Now, we've got a new product that they're marketing, that we're advertising, that I have slept on and used. Now, this is the Wave. The Wave by Casper is the most innovative mattress of Casper's to date. It allows you to feel relaxed in ways you've never thought even possible, giving you deep, restorative sleep. And I think that's important.
It is important.
That's kind of the whole point, I think. It features temperature-regulating technology to help you sleep cool and comfortable without overheating during the night. Whether you're a back, stomach, or side sleeper, the Casper Wave gives you the support and relief you need for a good night's sleep. It adjusts your body and natural curves. Thank you. Hopefully we muted Josh. Only the Wave has 5 layers of superior foam, including a cushioning top layer for maximum comfort. You can try it out, as with the previous mattresses, the Wave in your own home for 100 nights risk-free. You can buy online, get it delivered to your door in a small, compact box, and all Wave purchases come with in-home white glove delivery and setup for free, which is obviously an added plus there. We have upgraded to the Wave mattress in our house. It's actually, the first thing I noticed was it's a little bit thinner, a little bit shorter, more compact, depending on how that whether or not that affects any quality of it. But it slept great. It was cool. So I still love the unboxing experience of these mattresses. It's still really interesting to do. It kind of cut that plastic step away for a little bit, let it kind of out and expand. Up. Make sure kids and cats are no longer in the area because they might get underneath the mattress. Just don't do that. And actually now for this offer, they've raised the benefit. For $100 off of your Wave purchase, visit casper.com/PCPer100 and use promo code PCPer100. Terms and conditions apply. That's $100 off your purchase by visiting casper.com/PCPer100 and using promo code PCPer100 at checkout. Who knew that listening to this podcast could be such a financially beneficial thing for all of us.
Myself during that entire segment, and I about had an aneurysm.
That's good. I'm glad.
There were a couple of things.
No, I'm not
Self-control.
I'm not glad you almost had an aneurysm. I am glad you were muted. So thank you very much. And thank you to Casper for sponsoring this episode of the PC Perspective podcast. Okay. Now, I believe we talked about AMD market share like at the very, very end of last week's episode. And apparently I said we'd touch on it again. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't remember exactly what I said last week and what we would want to talk about here.
Oh, you said lots of shit last week.
Yeah.
You said
About
AMD's
this?
for fools.
No. So the interesting thing that happened was JPR, John Petty Research, released their data, and there was a quarter-to-quarter jump of, was it 6%? 6.5% in AMD's favor. So Q3 of 2017, AMD had 27.2% of the market share of sales, right? In Q4, that jumped from 27 to 33% market share, a huge jump. And obviously, since there's only two players in this field, that means NVIDIA dropped from 72 to 66. That is, I would say, probably one of the biggest jumps in a single quarter we've ever seen. Now, what's interesting about that is there should come as no surprise anybody who listens to this podcast and or follows the GPU market. That's not because of gaming.
Probably not.
It's not. Nobody can buy video cards for gaming anymore.
That's true.
Not nobody, but a lot of people cannot. And if you are, you're paying a whole lot more for it. And it's not like AMD released something magical in Q4 that would have shifted things the other direction. So this is JPR associates this shift with the cryptocurrency mining stuff, which is interesting to me because like people buy NVIDIA GPUs for mining quite a bit, I would assume. So why the unbalanced sales to that? Is it just that AMD partners were more willing to sell to these guys direct than NVIDIA partners or something like that? I don't know. I don't really have an answer for that. It was just interesting to see. Now, the downside to this is that if/when the cryptocurrency mining stuff falls off or away from GPUs or whatever you want to get into in that debate, are these market share numbers sustainable for AMD? And I would say, as far as we know, there's nothing on the GPU roadmap that's coming out anytime soon in 2018. And so if all the cryptocurrency just magically disappeared overnight, what would the landscape look like? What would the value landscape of GPUs be? And I still think NVIDIA is going to maintain a significant lead. I mean, even in these numbers where we talk about a huge shift, keep in mind that was 33% AMD, 66% NVIDIA. So it was still a 2-to-1. Is that right? Yeah, 2-to-1, not 3-to-1. 2-to-1 ratio of sales on that stuff. So
how was it? Not to mention.
Go ahead, Josh.
Can I speak?
Yep, go ahead.
The added complexity of the HBM implementation on the AMD side for the Vega 56 and Vega 64 as compared to just using regular GDDR5 and GDDR6 for
nobody uses
1070,
G6.
1080,
G5X,
1080 Ti.
G5X. No one uses G6.
Sorry, G5X, not 6X. Sorry.
I agree with you, but that would lean me to or like push me to believe that NVIDIA would have the advantage in being able to sell to these guys. But
not only that, but there's smaller dies per each thing, and the power is less. So you've got smaller board costs.
You do.
I mean, I don't think the majority of the AMD market share increase was because of Vega. I think it was because of Polaris.
Probably.
I think they could make Polaris quicker and cheaper, and every RX 580 has been bought since June. It was like before June. Yeah. Like it was the card all of this started with last year. It was like 480, 580. It was like, sweet spot for Ethereum. And then people started getting interested in more altcoins that NVIDIA GPUs had advantages with, and then some more stuff AMD GPUs had advantages with. But Polaris is where it started. So I'm not at all surprised to see that maybe they ramped up manufacturing of 580s earlier. They had the opportunity to ramp those up. It was a lower risk thing to ramp up.
Isn't that really nice that Polaris, the 580s, which is an MSRP of $230, is selling for $400 to $500. Isn't that wonderful?
It's amazing.
I saw one today
Yes.
at Best Buy for like $375. I was like, oh shit, that's cheap. And then I had to think about,
No, it's not. No, stupid stuff.
And you had to have a little cry in the corner.
yeah.
This JPR report also claimed that the add-in card vendors sold more than 3 million units of add-in cards to cryptocurrency miners directly, worth more than $776 million in revenue. That averages out to $258 per card, which is actually a fairly high ASP for graphics cards in general.
Yep.
Right? Now, for the enthusiast community, we tend to think of that like 250 as being like mainstream, but in the grand scheme of things, $250 for an add-in card is a high-end product. So also worth noting
funny.
that there were apparently, like last year in 2017, 52 million add-in cards sold, period. 3 million of which, at least 3 million of which went to cryptocurrency miners directly, which is 6%, which is maybe just a coincidence that part of that market share.
3 million.
3 million. And that, like I
That's
said,
a lot of cards.
That's to direct, not like through Newegg, Amazon, whatever. We're tracking that stuff is extremely difficult. So, I think it's still good news for AMD short term. I still think it's bad news for everybody long term, because
Do you know why it's partially bad news?
I think I do, but go ahead.
Because people who want to build their own system, they price it out and they're like, no. And so they either buy a pre-built, which may not have all the things they want, or they're just going to say, screw you guys, I'm going to buy a console.
Yeah.
And, the gaming industry is one of the growth industries in the world. And if you're moving away from the PC and you got people going back to consoles because they're cheaper and they give you a pretty decent bang for the buck.
Well, they definitely give you.
Why would you go back to PCs when they just, in between memory prices and GPU prices, it's nuts.
Yeah.
Jeremy,
Well, that AMD will be upset that you're going to consoles.
Well, so they're the
Well,
they're the beneficiary of it, of the two companies, but they make less per Xbox sale than they would if they sold you an add-in card.
Absolutely.
And also they have no control over that market. So they have no long-term, strategy of customer retention. Whereas they get you in the Radeon brand, they will, with drivers and software and all that other stuff.
But not only that, but how often do you buy a console versus buying historically speaking, buying a new GPU?
I mean,
year and a half for a new GPU.
6 years
4 to
for a
5
console.
years.
Yeah.
The problem is nowadays it's probably closer to 3 or 4 years with the way the prices are going. Most people aren't even thinking about it right now.
For GPUs, you mean?
Yeah, for GPUs specifically.
Yeah.
CPUs are a different conversation.
Joe says in the chat that AMD makes the chips in the consoles. They don't. They license them. They license the technology to Microsoft and Sony, who then produces them and uses them in their own system. So AMD is not like making the chip and selling it to them at a markup. They've licensed it, and their license agreements are per console or whatever they're going to be. But they're making less than they would if an add-in card partner sold a card. There's not a question about that. So that's the AMD stuff. Like I said, I think it's good news for now, but it's one of those things like, it would not shock me at all if in Q1 2018 this reverts back. AMD loses 6% and NVIDIA gains 6%, and we're back to where we started. Or it could go 3 or 4 points the other way.
Yeah.
Right? It could, depending on what AMD's decision was on ramping up. And as long as they're able to sell it from a financial standpoint, good for them. It doesn't affect any of us who are like trying to buy cards for gaming or whatever, anybody listening. I guess
until Matrox designs the perfect mining card and suddenly takes over the entire market.
Wouldn't that be great?
We'll all have to buy. Raja's going to save us all by giving us GPUs that Intel makes that nobody can mine with somehow. That'll be what it is. Let's see. Next thing. Jeremy wrote this up. Good news, everybody. RAM might only get somewhat more expensive this year.
They're in a really, really lousy mood, and someone suggested, well, why don't you just punch yourself in the head a couple of times? Well, why would I do that? Well, because it'll feel really good when you stop. That's essentially what we're looking at here. So last year, we saw DDR4 jump by just about 40% on the frequencies that are most common for people to buy. Server prices weren't quite as bad, but for just a general PC, you're looking at about 40% increase above what they launched at. So the good news is that we're probably only going to see like maybe a 5 to 10% hike over the next year.
Oh, cool.
You know, isn't that just amazing? So you'll be paying half again as much as if you just bought a whole bunch at the beginning when they first launched it.
Yeah, and this is still an issue of capacity at these memory fabs. They are building more capacity, but not quickly enough. I don't want to say quickly, because I don't know the complexity of building the fab. It's probably pretty hard to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, Samsung's got one down that's hopefully 2020-ish, 2019 maybe.
Yeah.
And that's like sort of the biggest one that's coming out. I think the other guys have a couple of them, but they're going to start small production, so it's not going to have an effect anytime soon. And the other problem is that RAM is now spread out into so many different markets. I mean, it used to be that a 64 gig phone was one of the highest things you saw.
Yeah.
Now that's just about the bloody base model.
Yep.
Your car is eating it up. Like your TV is eating up. Everything is chewing from the same pool of manufacturers. So, yeah, it's us that are kind of suffering for it.
Damn these people. Damn everybody.
I know.
Damn them all. I know what we need to replace the lack of system memory in our life.
More RGB.
It is RGB chairs.
Spreading like herpes.
Yeah.
I could get behind that.
You might want to get
My
in front of
wife's
it
in
instead.
Gamdias Achilles P1L gaming chair with RGB lights on the back of it, right? When I first saw this picture, I thought it was on the front, like where your neck would be.
That makes no sense.
Behind your shoulders is like, this is dumb. But hey, we have plenty of mice that have RGBs underneath where your palm rests when you're using it. So there's that. So, what? Jeremy, what the hell?
Kyle tried it out, and there's a video you can watch if you really want to. Apparently, his kids loved it.
Of course, Kyle tried it. Of course, Kyle
Look at
tried
that.
it out.
Look at this. Kyle, don't make me take down this podcast video. There he is.
He looks so happy.
Where's the door? Open the chair.
Yes, this is my favorite part of every chair is putting the damn
Trying to put the damn thing together.
Well, Jeremy, how do you power it? Is there a battery in there? I guess it's not corded, right? It's not.
No.
What then?
Kinetic energy.
Well, keep going. Watch it.
Is it fart powered? What?
Yes.
Old man leaning back in a chair.
Ryan did that when he got his.
Everybody does that, of course.
Okay, so what?
Jeremy, you're just gonna.
Are we gonna see this chair lit up or what? Or is he gonna?
Well, I
roll
mean,
it
you gotta wait and see it.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Oh, looks cool.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, there's a little rechargeable battery in it, from what I know. So there's
recharge my chair.
So you do have to plug it in.
like literally you have to recharge the chair. But I mean, if you're buying an RGB chair, having a USB port on the back of it's just going to make sense to you somehow, isn't it?
I suppose.
$430.
You gonna trade in your new fell off a truck Aeron for this?
It wasn't stolen. It was maybe stolen. But no, I don't think I'm going to trade in the Aeron
Fell off that truck fair and square.
If you click through to the product page, you will also see the world's most useless leg rest.
Is it an RGB leg rest?
No, it's just
scrolling.
My legs are slightly longer than this.
Looking for a leg rest. Oh,
it's like
more like
keep
a
going down.
knee rest.
Keep going. There you go.
It's
apparently it's for people who like gaming with their knees around their neck.
Okay, yeah, you like to scrunch up and put your
feet on it?
Sure.
I don't get it.
Hey, okay, no, that's fine. Yeah,
I don't get the RGBs either. So there you go.
If you put your feet on that and you lay the back all the way back, then you're pretty much guaranteed to flip over.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, with all the weight up that high. Yeah.
But thankfully, people will see you coming because of the lights.
Yeah.
Where'd the lights go? Oh, Jeremy fell over again.
Technoscope has a great idea in the chat.
Okay.
They need a really large Qi wireless pad that you put on the floor.
There you go.
I actually thought that maybe you would recharge it with moving the wheels on the thing. Now that's a much more complicated system to have to integrate into a
Don't
game.
really
rolling
share
around.
that much.
But
No,
like I have a
it's not
stroller.
friction.
I have a stroller that recharges a battery by pushing the stroller.
Sure, but the
right?
stroller moves around more than your desk chair.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
But you just do desk chair races.
Like, oh no,
fair.
No, God, I've got 2 more hours to charge.
This is right. How much moving does he do?
Yeah, not much. Not much. Yeah, I don't really go anywhere anymore. That chair stays still. So there you go. All right. There's your RGB chair update for the week. Thanks for that, Kyle. AMD announced Project ReSX. I'm going to call it ReSX. Yes. This is an interesting thing. So it is essentially the ReSX stands for Radeon Esports Experience, and the goal was to optimize performance for some of the most popular PC games for Radeon GPUs.
Let me stop you right there.
Okay.
Is that not what they're already doing? Generally speaking,
Well, that's what you would think they're doing. Well, so here's the designation, right? Here's the difference. In general, once a game is out and stable and performance is pretty good, then they would be moving on to whatever the next AAA title that's coming out,
okay,
right? And so the goal with this project was
because these are older games,
or
games that have been around. for a while.
So we're talking about PUBG, Overwatch, and Dota 2.
Okay.
Right, games that have been out for a while. Like PUBG has plenty of room for optimization. I don't think should be considered in that same category, but whatever. And the idea is, let's figure out how we can, increase the frame rate, but more importantly, create more fluid gameplay, more responsive, kind of lower that input to display latency as best as possible.
Okay.
Now, it's also kind of confusing because you're right. Like this, you kind of assume like, well, you should be doing this anyway because popular games sell video cards.
It's kind of the job of driver updates, right?
Yeah.
Like to make things
I
work
agree.
better and
I agree.
faster. Yeah.
Also, that they had, I believe it was timed with the Vega release, had a driver that was specifically like a feature of the driver that was specific to lowering input latency of key like DX9 games like League of Legends, Dota 2. You remember this? I couldn't find the specific date, but they were talking about specifically like they had found some low-hanging fruit where they could adjust buffer sizes or that
sense.
type of thing.
Yeah.
So they kind of started down that route. So the project is interesting. They talk about AMD sees an 11% improvement in average frame rate. And 9% improvement in the 99th percentile frame time in PUBG, for example.
Okay.
With this, and that's really good.
Yeah.
But it's not like from the most recent driver to this driver. It's from the first release of the Adrenaline driver, which is in December, to this one. There's also several game patches that have occurred in the meantime.
Right.
AMD goes out of the way to talk about in this that they both did optimizations in their driver, but also were sending engineers out
with
to
the vendor,
the software developer, if they would allow it, or if they would allow them to send code in for review, they would do it that way.
Right.
So they, they're definitely spending time and money and energy to do this. My questions around it still are like they call it Project ReSX. Right. It has a name. It's been marketed. It's been branded. But I couldn't get anyone to commit that this was going to be a long-term thing, that there were other games coming. There was the insinuation of, as we see other things we can do, we'll expand this type of thing.
Yeah.
But if they're not going to come out and make some commitment of, the top 20 games by play time every year, we're going to focus, so 20% more energy or 50% more energy than we were in previous years, blah, blah, blah. Like, to me, it loses a lot of its teeth as a story because it's just...
There's branding, there's a current set of games, but there's no future.
It doesn't feel like it yet. They haven't committed to anything like that. And instead, it has the feeling of a one-off fix, which is fine, but in which case you would just put this in the driver release notes. Maybe you go out and do a media tour with it. You kind of call some people and you talk through it, but you don't create a brand. You don't have, a special, slide deck built for this specific feature of this. You kind of talk about it in relation to other things. So I'm a little curious about this, and it does apply to RX 500 series. It does apply to Vega as well. And I put this in.
And there's sort of two things I think about. Like, you've got esports right in the name, right?
Yeah.
So every game is convinced it's going to be the next esports game that takes off forever.
Well, sure.
There's no way to predict what the future is going to be from AMD's part to say these are the games we're going to definitely be working on, And just because something's popular doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the one that all of a sudden people are making money playing. So you could tie, and I've had some opinions about AMD's advertising in the past, but I still hold hope for them. You tie this directly in with esports tournaments, and this is where the ReSX goes. So as opposed to the slide deck and that, you tie it directly in to these big tournaments that are going on. And, as the next thing comes out, you sort of try and advance the brand again with some new updates. I don't know if that's the way they'll go, but it sort of made sense to me. And the other thing that struck me quickly today, because I was looking at some overclocked Vega cards, and they're brilliant at Vulkan and DX12. But a lot of these games that they're looking at are neither, which, in a way kind of gives them a bit more competitiveness against NVIDIA, because they're saying, we're not just abandoning the old stuff, even though our architecture is built towards dealing with the new stuff and the future stuff. But we're still going to go back and try and deal with some of the stuff that, we're not quite as good at, but we can get better at. So I'm interested to see if this is just, like you say, a one-shot thing, or if you start seeing ReSX branded tourneys happening.
Yeah, maybe. And I also pointed out in the end of this story that, I want AMD to continue to do this. So I don't want to shit on them for I can't believe they did this thing and they branded it and how dumb of them, whatever. I don't care how they brand it in reality or how they market it or spin it or whatever, as long as they're doing the work to make the games, more stable and faster, improve times, lower latencies, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But
should be doing that all along.
Yeah. For example, NVIDIA released driver 39101. This was the last email I had from NVIDIA in my inbox, right? 8 days ago or whatever it was. And they talked about seeing, hey, they had done some optimizations for PUBG as well. And they saw for, up to 7% improvements with 1050s and, at 1080p, 7% with the 1080 at 25 by 14, 7% at 4K with the 1080 and 1080 Ti. So they also saw some improvements, right? Maybe as a result of some of that developer work that has been occurring. PUBG is definitely a game that could use some optimization on all platforms that it exists. So I also didn't want it to, I don't think it's fair to also hold AMD up on a pedestal that they're doing this thing and somehow insinuating that the other guy is not. Right? NVIDIA still does. They still release a lot of drivers. And in fact, pretty much the only information I get from them anymore is about, hey, we've got a driver that adds this feature or adds support for this game or does this thing.
Improves performance in some games,
Everybody's doing it. AMD needed to catch up. It looks like they are. I don't really understand the ReSX side of it, why it needs to be a project ReSX branded thing. But regardless, that's a positive, right? Regardless of why or
improvements are good.
I just
do the improvements.
I would feel way better about it if they said this is the future. We're going to do this, and every quarter we're going to pick 5 games, and we're going to spend the next month figuring out what these games do or something like that. I don't know. That made sense to me. Let's see. What else we got in here? Khronos Group releases Vulkan 1.1 and SPIR-V 1.3. Scott wrote this up, and he's not here to talk me through it or anything. Essentially, the most recent update to Vulkan. Does anybody read this and see what they added specifically? They added to the API protected content, which allows developers to restrict access to rendering resources. So essentially, rendering
necessary
DRM.
evils these days.
What's that?
Necessary evils these days.
It is. Yes, it is.
Ooh, boo.
Subgroup operations, which basically allows individual threads of a GPU in a warp or wavefront to work together on specific instructions. Okay, sounds positive. Shader compilers can use these intrinsics to speed up operations, and Scott gives some examples about min-max of series of numbers, shuffles, adding, multiplying, a lot of that stuff, obviously.
Put on a couple more. Yeah, there. One more.
This one?
Yeah.
Proven extensions?
Well, it looks like they're, improved support for VR stuff like VR specific warp.
Multi-view, device groups, data share, allows data to be shared between APIs and whole applications, 16-bit data type. So that's good news. For AMD, who has the rapid packed math, 16-bit support, being able to do that in more APIs is obviously good. So that's good. I don't have any other input to add to this necessarily. If anybody else does, feel free to chime in. But
Vulkan forever, yo. So much easier to code for than DX12 effectively.
Yeah.
So much easier.
are you just saying that, or do you actually mean that?
No, actually, I mean it. The amount of work that programmers have to do
For Vulkan
is kind
versus
of impressive
DX12? I hadn't heard
for
that.
DX12.
I hadn't heard because Vulkan is still a low-level API. Like
It's totally metal.
born as Mantle, right? Converted, moved and transferred over to Vulkan. I'd always assumed that Vulkan and DX12 kind of had the same detail level.
Anecdotally, if you look at a lot of emulators implementing Vulkan over DX12, because it's an easier thing to implement.
Is it?
And it's
Okay.
kind of a wider support across hardware. Like they can run on
Android,
Linux, they
yeah.
can run it.
It's almost like there's a bunch more tools in Vulkan to get some low-level type results without doing like I'm going to program these atomic memory functions in, which you have to do for if I'm remembering this correctly, for DX12. It's a lot more labor intensive to do a lot of those same things in DX12. I mean, you've got this great granular control, but there are some programmers who are like, you know what, I like having this amount of control. I like to be able to say, hey, you write to this memory, you do this, you don't have this API sitting in between and doing things and kind of, this real-time compiler that says, hey, I want to have this action, and it goes through, a bunch of stages and says, hey, I'm going to automatically do it to this piece of memory, which may not be most efficient for your application. But Vulkan seems to have a lot more because, it's based on Mantle, and AMD, I think, built a lot of stuff into Mantle that made these things easier to implement with you can get to the same granularity, but I think there's just more tools that is built in to allow you to more, I'm just making this into word salad, but more automatically be able to leverage the advantages as compared to what Microsoft has with DX12. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah.
You're saying there's less boilerplate.
Yeah, I guess you could say that, but it's a lot of tools involved, and me not being tools. A programmer, I can only kind of anyway.
That's fair. Yeah. No, so if you want more background on that, read Scott's write up on it. He's obviously going to have more knowledge and background on that than anybody of here speaking about it. Last thing before we get to our picks, Far Cry 5. When's this supposed to be out? Is this
end of the
27th?
month, I think. Yeah.
Oh, it's this month, March 27th. Yep. Okay. So some places were able to do previews of this game, apparently. And I also saw that they brought some people out to like a California ranch to like simulate what the environment was in
Montana.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's in California.
No, but ranch. The game is in Montana.
It sure is. Yeah. And boy, it's cold there right now.
Screenshot looks really good.
Yeah, I have seen only kind of like teaser trailers.
If you float over
E3.
it, they call it a crossbow.
Nice. So Rob over at TechGauge did a preview of this. Got to spend some time with it. I didn't even play Far Cry 4.
That was the Paleolithic one?
No, that was Primal.
No,
that's Primal.
4 was like the one in like India, Pakistan.
Yeah, like you rode on an elephant.
I played that one. That was actually really funny. So I launched it, and they do this opening scene, and my mom called. So I didn't bother to pause the game. I'm like, whatever, it can just run. And I chat with her, and after about 45 minutes, an hour, and mom time, I come back and I'd beaten the game. Because apparently, if you just sit there and listen to him and don't go anywhere after he tells you not to go anywhere, you actually
15
win
minutes,
the game.
He comes back and takes you to the
Yes.
That's pretty good.
It made me laugh. so bad.
And you just closed it and never opened it again.
The game looks really
I played
impressive.
a little bit more, but not much.
The game looks really impressive. The timing will be good to look through some graphics cards, maybe. Well, I think most of those rumors of an NVIDIA release at the end of this month have been shot down, so maybe that's not happening anymore. Regardless.
Honestly, at this point, I think that your main weapon should be a stick, and you should be chasing Mustangs around.
Do you mean the car or the horse?
I meant the horse. Otherwise, the phrase doesn't work well.
Actually, I think the car is even funnier because I can see you chasing around a fox body with a big stick.
Oh yeah, it's got to be a fox body.
Get back here! Get back here!
All right. All right, so that's it. Far Cry 5 coming out soon. I do have one new pledge.
Oh, and you get it for free if you buy an AMD card or a system with a card in it, by the way.
Oh yeah, that's right. Not a card bundle, but a system bundle.
Well, they can't buy cards
because you can't buy cards. So I think it would actually just piss people off if you said you get Far Cry 5 for free. If you think all the miners that would have copies of Far Cry 5.
You'd be able to get Far Cry 5 for $5 on eBay.
That's true. Every miner that buys 20 cards would sell them all the keys. But I bet you have to register the card with the serial number to get the key. I think they started doing that.
And that's when they disable the mining. Here we go.
You're clearly a gamer.
I know NVIDIA has changed it for the recent key, like CD key bundle things where you have to actually, like for the Destiny 2
it's a key on GeForce.com.
Well, you have to enter into GeForce Experience with a GPU that was eligible for one of those promotions installed. Like the Destiny 2 one was a 1080 or 1080 Ti, and then it launched BattleNet where you logged in and it added it to your account. You never got a key.
That's clever, but also kind of shitty.
Yeah,
because you had to have an account.
When I ordered it on,
what if you had two systems,
I ordered my
right?
1080 Ti on Amazon, I got the email with the key in it, and I went over to like my work PC. I had GeForce Experience by chance. And I was like, "Oh, sorry, you don't have an eligible GPU installed." It's like, man,
yeah, that's kind of crappy. Yeah, oh well. So we do have one more Patreon edition who pledged $6.66.
Hey, that's the same price as my flight to Mexico.
This new subscriber / patron is Big Dick Johnson.
Good old Richard.
Nice.
So thank you, Mr. Johnson, for your pledge of $6.66. We greatly appreciate it. All right, to our picks of the week. Up first is mine. So my group of college friends, they play video games a lot, but they play it all on consoles. And so they were guilting me into playing PUBG on the console. And apparently I didn't realize this was the thing, but these guys are really into it now. The texture loading on PUBG on the Xbox is a disaster. It's just, I don't even understand how it's possible that this game...
Blurry.
I don't care if it's
blurry.
Yeah, I don't care if it's...
streaming them on the fly.
What do they call the Xbox?
It's a game preview program.
Game preview program. So it's not like officially
Early
out.
access.
But I cannot believe that Microsoft would let this come out this way. Because
my first thought when you said that was the Rage texture pop-up. But no, it's just awful all the time?
No, it will eventually load in. But like literally, the game, you parachute down. So apparently the worst thing that happens is if you land on a roof, right? And then you immediately go inside that building. It doesn't, like, because you haven't hit the ground, it doesn't know which building textures to try to stream in first. So you go in and like literally you'll just see items floating in midair because the geometry structures haven't streamed in to fill in the rest of the building. But apparently the fix for this, or a way to accelerate it and make it a lot better, is to use an SSD, but you can't change the internal drive on an Xbox like you can a PS4. Not easily.
Okay.
So you use a USB 3 to SATA dongle for your SSD, and as long as it supports UASP, it's the newer form of USB 3. It's actually faster through the external drive than it is through the internal drive. Even on the Xbox One X, that's the case apparently. Even though the Xbox One X moves from SATA 2 to SATA 3 third gen stuff, I think. So
you just tell the Xbox put the game on that other drive instead?
Yeah, it's actually that system is great, right? So you actually, like, I had a 500 gig SSD, I plugged it in, I plugged USB into the drive, Xbox pops up and says, hey, you got new storage. You can use it for like save games without formatting it, or if you want to use it to move games to, install games to, format it. I said, yep, format it, do it. And then you just go into the settings go into like the storage management, highlight the game, you hit the select button, and it's like you can just move it to the other one, and it just moves the installation of the other drive, and there you go. So and it worked better, and it did load in the textures significantly faster. But it's just pretty shitty that in order to do that, you have to buy, in this case, it's a $12 StarTech SATA 3 hard drive adapter, UASP,
and you need
adapter.
the SSD.
And you need the SSD, right? Clearly. But
And this dongle hanging out the back of your Xbox.
and so now I've just got this Xbox One with a SATA drive kind of hanging off to the side, bare extended.
If it's good enough for Apple,
Yeah. I think most of my other friends actually bought like an external dock to put the SSD in, so it's like a little cleaner. Not me. No, bare drive.
The 20 instead of the 12.
Out there extended. So, all right,
that's it. Download Fallout 4 and do the texture pack and see how that goes.
All right. Allyn. Wait, I got Allyn on here next. That's odd.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay.
Yeah, and Deep Space Waifu Collection, which I'm really worried about.
Excuse me?
You link to the Steam specials, and the top one is Deep Space Waifu Collection.
Well, I that's not what I was interested in. But
Good.
Yeah.
So
Sebastian's unconvinced.
instead of looking out for like the emails that talk about the Steam sales that are going on, or when you go to just in the Steam client, you'll just see like if there's a big sale event going on, they'll have some sales. But there's usually specials just going on all the freaking time.
Okay.
And if you go there and like sort by user reviews instead of just by like,
How come half the stuff is waifu on your?
Seriously, I'm getting a bit worried.
it's showing that for.
They just get the best
Well,
user
Queen
reviews.
based on his purchase
Actually,
history,
this list gives you. It doesn't matter who you are.
You
get
got
the same
Nyan
list.
Cat.
Love at first sight.
Oh, yeah.
Let's
Maybe
sort
we
by
don't want
something
to trust
else.
Steam ratings after all.
No, there's some good stuff at the top there.
Thank
Like
God relevance didn't
Here,
show
what you should actually
anything
do
else.
is not sort by user reviews, sort by relevance. And now you know that Nier Automata is selling for 50%
You guys
off.
still doing PC per plays?
No.
Not really.
Maybe you should start up a waifu thing.
Oh God, no.
Apparently it gets a lot of attention.
I've already got a waifu thing going on. You know what I mean? I don't know what I mean.
I have a great pillow collection.
Or
Karma
were there any
Mechanic
games that
Simulator
stood out,
2018.
Alan, when you looked at that? You're
just-
just trying to spend money. Is that what you're doing?
No, I just like there's the second. Well, if you go back to the other sorting,
I did. Relaxing puzzle box.
That's a collection of games that the Clocky was a pretty popular puzzler
Okay, that
a while
looks.
back.
Yeah, there it is.
And like that
Clocky.
guy makes some other games, and there's some of those are on sale for pretty cheap. If you go back, there's Tomorrow Corporation collection. That's the guy that did World of Goo.
Okay.
He makes some pretty good games. So like you'll see like sales from other games made by indie game developers that
Got it. All right. Fair enough.
maybe not the huge blowout you'll see like with the Valve collection or whatever, where everything's already compounded 40% on top of 50% off for the group
Yeah.
or whatever, right? But there's still sales. There's still stuff that you wouldn't necessarily have seen advertised, separately, and wouldn't have.
Perfect.
Like Dead Space 2 is 75% off.
Yeah,
right now.
It's really old. But yeah,
It's
already have
old,
it.
but it's 75% off, right? Like that's
Ooh. App game
Yeah,
kit
it could
development
sit
bundle.
in your unplayed Steam games for half off.
Yeah.
And then there's a Dead Space collection
very true.
bundle, which is Dead Space and Dead Space 2 are both 75% off.
All right. There you go.
Yeah.
Spend some more money, I guess, on games you probably won't play, as Josh pointed out. Who's next? Who has the cable matters?
Oh well, cables matter, man.
Well,
So
tell me
I
why.
was really annoyed with our installer at the new office because they installed HDMI 1.3 converters. I'd convinced them that it's a really smart idea to do HDMI to Cat 5 or Cat 6, go through the walls, and away you go. Everything's lovely. So they put in a bunch, and yeah, it'll do 1080p, but we got 4K TVs. And don't ask me how my office manager sold that one, but we got like a dozen 4K TVs now. But I'm like, your HDMI is not going to do with this, and I'm kind of annoyed at it, so we should get these replaced. And so I decided to do a quick little search and realize that, yeah, if you want 4K resolution on HDMI to RJ45, they start at $500 a pop. This strikes me as bizarre, and I'm part of this pick is because I'm curious if I've gone horribly wrong and someone actually knows of a good solution to it. But apart from that, I did convince them that, it would be nice to have a single source, and then you can send it to TVs on one side of the office and the other side. So we picked up some of these, which are, we got them for a little cheaper than the $90 that they're at now, but it'll do up to 300 feet. And they come with a nice kit, so you can install them under a table, do whatever you want with them. It is kind of neat. I'm still disappointed that I can't do more than 1080p.
Wait a minute, go back up 2 pictures. Oh, so it comes those
and it comes
cables?
with an HDMI cable. So I mean, hey, it's not that bad a deal.
So the interesting thing is, Ken and I used these at one point. Not these specific ones, but we used HDMI over Cat.
We used like
5.
more passive ones. So we used 2 cables.
I convinced them not to use the passive ones just because they generally tend to have issues.
Ours worked fine, I think, for most applications, except we had a good idea of we had, what do you call that? The board we had, Ken, that we could swap the cables around on.
Patch panel.
We had a patch panel where we were going to be able to say, okay, like these 4 ports could either be data or video, and all we have to do is like go switch the cables that connected them all. It was overly complicated. It did work. I think we used them for like our cameras.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like when we were doing at the old office, when we were doing podcasts.
That's why there was 1,000 foot of Ethernet in that ceiling.
Yeah, and we left it all there. Yep. So such is life. Yeah.
We're moving out of that place. The whole place was empty. We looked up. And we're like, no.
How much do you want that cable? Not that much.
Hey, there's like $20 worth of copper up there.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Ken's found one that claims to do 4K HDMI over 70 meters.
It's HDMI 1.4, so it's 4K 30. But
4K 30
for that,
yeah.
4K 30 would be good enough. Yeah. I mean, we're not going to be doing anything more than that. For
you already had you couldn't run new cable, right? Like for your thing, you already just had the Cat 6.
Yeah, we got the Cat 6 run because we're getting Cat 6 run, and it's like, yeah, just do these ones, but label them HDMI and don't terminate them back in the server room.
Yep.
Or in the one case, terminate them here because we're going to be putting in an HDMI source and then broadcasting it out.
Right.
So we can all watch our own propaganda because work is strange.
Right. Interesting. Cool. All right. Who's got the Ryzen? I guess I know. You're muted. One day.
I feel a bad CPU or Ryzen. No, it's terrible.
It was.
Even though we've got Zen Plus coming up within the next couple of months, they're going to see a couple of nice specials, and the 1800X for $309
wow. Yeah.
is still a very good buy. Even if
Plus
you consider the
shipping.
leaks that you have seen over the past couple of days of the Ryzen 2000 series,
Yep.
this is still a good price in terms of performance, TDPs. It's a good thing. Sure, the next generation, well, not next generation, but the new stuff that will come up will have better latencies. We'll have a little bit better power draw, a little higher clock speeds. But if you're in the market for buying one now, it's still a very competitive price, even considering what's coming up in the next several months. So,
there you go.
$310 for an 1800X is a good deal.
Agreed. And I guess that leaves Sebastian.
So if you've shopped for GPUs, you obviously know that there's a bit of a shortage, and we've seen DDR4 prices rise to twice what they were like a year and a half ago.
All right.
Then I was delighted to discover that this is sort of carried over into the PSU space, where you go shopping for a power supply and realize that all the higher wattage power supplies are either inflated or out of stock everywhere. So I was hunting around because I needed a couple of power supplies for some reason. And even like Amazon, third-party sellers, anybody who actually had one in stock, it was all way too much. And Corsair has a refurbished store I'd never visited before. They have various things on there, including power supplies. And
Those are good prices.
they're very good prices. They're not like super low, like they're $30 or $40 less than a new one. But my experience buying a couple of power supplies from them was they shipped like a day later, and shipping was like $9. So very reasonable, and full warranty with them. The stuff actually looked brand new. I know anytime anything is repackaged, it has to be sold as refurbished. It can't be sold as new again. But all the like modular cables that came with the power supplies were brand new. The power supplies looked and like had that brand new smell. But these like $179 for the 1000-watt HX series is very, very good. Scroll through.
I like that AX 860 that goes from $199 to $139.
Yeah, very good prices, and I don't see any difference between this and a new one personally. But you can actually get them in stock. Whereas I looked on Newegg and Amazon a few minutes ago, and the same power supply is either $219 or $230 or ships in 1 to 2 months or only available through third-party sellers. So it seems like a reliable place to go and look at what their current inventory is.
Interesting. Good find. All right, everybody. That's going to be it for this week's episode. Again, PCPer.com/podcast is the URL you go to find our show notes, our links, files, RSS, all the stuff. All the stuff you need is at PCPer.com/podcast. We will be back next week with another riveting episode of this very same show. Episode will at that point will only be 9 weeks away from the most exciting 500th episode ever. So thanks everybody for hanging out. We'll see you next time. Goodbye. This episode of the PC Perspective Podcast is brought to you by Casper, a sleep brand that continues to revolutionize its line of products to create an exceptionally comfortable sleep experience one night at a time. Get $100 off select mattresses by visiting casper.com/PCPer100 and using promo code PCPer100 at checkout.